We're now joined by ActionSA's provincial chairperson, Bongani Baloyi. Thanks very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on the program.
All right. So if today's press briefing is anything to go by, it sounds as if the coalition in Tshwane is holding firm on what it agreed right at the beginning of time.
That's correct. From where we stand, the coalition is intact. There's an agreement that's been honored by all parties, and we expect to successfully elect the mayoral candidate.
All right. So Cilliers Brink is the man you've chosen. Why?
The DA presented a mayoral candidate in terms of our coalition agreement, where the provision is that the DA will present a mayoral candidate and consult the partners, and that happened. And we raised our reservations that we had initially, and they were responded to, and we are comfortable that we can proceed with the nomination from the DA of the mayoral candidate.
And this agreement entitles you to the deputy mayor?
That is correct. So the city would still need to embark on a process, the legal process, to ensure that there's a deputy mayor resolution by the city of Tshwane, and subsequently there needs to be an engagement with the MEC of Cooperative Governance and Local Government to consent to this process.
The parties outside of the coalition are calling for a secret ballot. Is that something you would be amenable to, given your confidence in the coalition holding?
Look, I think it's standard practice that when the mayor is elected, the mayor is elected via a secret ballot. So I would not think anything untoward with that, because from where we stand, the coalition is in full tact and is in agreement with the way we're going to proceed.
All right. So for us as citizens, all that's happened is the changing of the guard, but in terms of coalition governance, it's business as usual.
Look, it can't be business as usual. The city is in a mess financially and service delivery, and the residents who live in Tshwane can agree to this. So it cannot be business as usual when we need to recover the finances of the city, stabilize the finances of the city, and provide adequate and proper leadership. So it will never be business unusual, rather, for the city. So there needs to be some decisive action taken on particular programs of the city, whilst honoring the agreement and the areas of focus in the agreement of the coalition. And for us, there's issues around service delivery, roll corruption, and equally issues of insourcing of security guards and cleaners. So it's not going to be business as usual.
So were you surprised by what came out in the Auditor General's report?
Absolutely. I mean, the Auditor General report paints a gloom picture of the city of Tshwane, and it points towards the mismanagement, the fact that the institution has no functional management systems that's able to mitigate and protect the city against theft and corruption. So I think there's a lot that needs to happen, and we need to equally apologize to the residents, even though we're only part of this government for 7 months for that period. But the city historically has not been performing well, and I really think it's something that we need to deal with decisively by providing leadership, but equally demonstrating to the public through improved service delivery and improved financial position of the city that we are able to govern, and a coalition that we are part of is a coalition that's sustainable.
So the question then becomes, were you a coalition government only in name? How can these things have surprised you when you're part of governance? Or were you?
Look, we were part of this government as a coalition for about 7 months. And naturally, when you're in a government like this, you become the successor-in-law, whether you are part of a period of it or the entire period. So we accept accountability, and that's why as ActionSA, we were calling for the head of the executive mayor, and I believe that his resignation in the manner that he has resigned was clear demonstration that he's not just leaving only for the sake of the coalition, but because there's a mess under his leadership. And there has to be political consequences for people who lead these coalitions. And that's what we're extracting. We're extracting accountability. And extracting accountability is a process that's not easy, more so for the person who's at the helm of this institution. So from our side, we're taken aback and completely surprised by the mismanagement and the lack of leadership provided and lack of sufficient assurance by the executive mayor, because all of these happened under his watch as the executive mayor, more so when we understand that there's material misstatements in the finances and there weren't any adequate record keeping. So that's something that has to be dealt with.
So what are you going to do differently as ActionSA as part of this coalition government going forward to make sure that everybody does their job and does it properly?
Look, I think we've strengthened our oversight mechanisms as a coalition, but equally the role players, the MMCs, the executive, has to provide adequate assurance and ensure that what happened in the past does not happen again. And there's a clear financial recovery plan placed before us and a number of strategies that have been endorsed by the coalition that needs to be implemented by the coalition in government.
All right, so come Friday, as far as you're concerned, it's a formality that your candidate will become mayor.
That's what we expect. But also politics teaches us that nothing is final until it's final, but we believe that we are prepared and we've got a coalition and all the members will adhere to a decision that has been made. So we are hopeful that we'll be able to deal with the business of the day, and equally important, pass an adjustment budget for council and be able to continue with the business of council and deliver services and be accountable to the residents.
It sounds as if you may have a blueprint on how coalition governments can happen in other parts of the country, because you seem to be resolved to stick to the agreement that you signed originally and the principles therein. Is this something that other metros and municipalities can take from you? What would you say is the key learning from the way you've set up your coalition?
Look, the key learnings in our coalition, and many of you have seen publicly that we have raised some critical and sharp issues around the issues of coalition and the difficulties of managing a coalition in this manner, more so when you've got a partner who at times becomes arrogant and they behave as if they've got majority and they behave as if they're senior and junior partners, which is not the case. And I really think that the DA in this case has woken up and they're starting to appreciate that there's partners that they work with. It's not a DA-run coalition. This is a multi-party coalition. And I think they've come to the table in a very humble and appreciating that there's partners around who can determine the success of this coalition. So I really think that we are trying to really invest into the institution of coalitions in Gauteng, and while demonstrating to residents that we are able to govern, we are able to maintain and create a stable environment. But ultimately, all of what I'm saying has to be confirmed by the residents by giving a thumbs up to the city and confirm that they're really receiving services. And it's something we're going to closely monitor, because if it does not serve the needs of the residents, then there's no point being in a coalition. And that's why we took the position we took in Ekurhuleni, where we said we will not be part of this minority coalition, that this coalition does not have numbers. It cannot even pass a budget in council. So we don't see that we should be part of a coalition that is completely inept and worsened by the fact that you've got incompetent leadership leading such a coalition in Ekurhuleni. So we're firm on that case, but I think in this case, the DA has turned around and they're a bit more humble and they are engaging respectfully other partners, and that's why we gave this a thumbs up.
Mr. Malatsi, thank you very much indeed for your time and giving us some insights on what lies ahead. Thanks so much indeed.
Thank you so much. My surname is not changed. It's still Baloyi.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why. Do you know I was speaking to a Malatsi just now. So sorry, Mr. Baloyi. A different party as well. So sorry. Thanks so much.
Please. No, I'm much more handsome than that.
Oh, gosh.
Please respect me. I'm much more handsome.
So sorry. Thanks, Mr. Baloyi. Have a good evening. Wow.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Thank you so much. There you go. So much happening this evening. And the reason why Actually, I was thinking of Mr. Malatsi because we were speaking to him a short while ago about Eskom, and there's breaking news that's come out of Eskom right now. There's a communique where it says Andre de Ruyter has left Eskom with immediate effect. That's right. Wednesday, the 22nd of February, a media statement has come out following the convening of a special board meeting on the 22nd of February 2023. The Eskom board and the Group Chief Executive Andre de Ruyter have reached a mutual agreement to curtail his notice period to the 28th of February. The board further resolved that Mr. de Ruyter will not be required to serve the balance of the notice period and that he will be released from his position with immediate effect. Acting GC arrangements are being finalized with the shareholder minister and will be communicated shortly.